Hey everybody, I know everyone's coming in right now. We're going to give it about a minute, and while we do that, we're going to make sure we clean our equipment.
Get tool wipe down here.
Keep our distance. We got some hand sanitizer as well.
Hand sanitizer is about the price of gold these days.
I don't know if you saw it the other day. I saw a picture of a toilet paper, and it was wrapped with a gold ribbon, and it said price $3,000. And the very bottom it said asterisk, comes with a gold ring.
My brother sent me a video, and it was a mock of a guy doing a dope deal. So imagine somebody pulling up in a car, and the dealer coming over and going, hey, and they switch the money into stuff. Well, the guy's selling hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer, yeah. Nowadays, people are making hand sanitizer. It's funny. So, all right, we're going to get going. My name is Justin Walsh. I'm one of the sales engineers for Rhino Toolhouse.
Brad Lengkeek. I'm one of the support people for Rhino Toolhouse, based out of Concord, North Carolina.
Well, we do appreciate you joining us today for another live demo on some unique products that we offer at Rhino Toolhouse. Starting on Monday, we had you in New Berlin, Wisconsin. We took a small trip to Iowa to see some crane. Yesterday, we went to Greenville, South Carolina for a little bit with Joachim, and then flew all the way over to Sweden for BioServer, the Iron Hand. Today and for the next 4 business days, we are here live at the Charlotte, North Carolina, Concord, North Carolina facility, the previous Rhino Assembly headquarters. So we are excited to bring you down south. Yes, we are 75-degree weather, bright blue sky for the last several days. So I apologize for you that are still suffering in snow conditions, which last week we had somebody in North Dakota on that. Today and moving forward, we're going to bring you some exciting new technology, talking about a couple wearables over the next couple of days. Today, we're going to get into precision fastening equipment that we provide. There's a couple admin things we want to talk about real quick. Number one, everyone, and Steve's going to put it on the chat. Number one, we want to go to side-by-side view. So in the very top portion of your screen, you're going to see view options. Click on the drop down for the view options and click on side-by-side. We have a couple videos going today. We also have our colleagues from Nexonar in Germany that we're going to join us for a little bit at the end of the session. And you'll be able to see them. You'll be able to see our system here, and we do have a phone camera projecting on the workbench. Another note is we do have a chat feature up and running. Please ask all the questions you want regarding Nexenar. At the very end, we will have a Q&A session. We'll try to do our due diligence to answer all those questions now for you. If not, we'll send out some more information to you, fully answering your question later with one of our sales engineers. Without further ado, Mr. Brad.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. Excuse me. I had read somewhere that people touch their face, their nose, their ears, somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 times per day. When my wife seen that, she said, oh, you're 2 or 3 times that, because I'm always rubbing my nose, itching my ears, something. So what we want to talk to you today about, or share with you today, is Nexenar. What is Nexenar? Nexenar is a precision tracking system that uses infrared technology. So I'm going to cover just a little bit of the hardware first. Of course, there's a computer that's running software, but we have an infrared camera mounted up here that's watching for the tracker itself. And in my case, I've got a tracker that's mounted to my virtual workpiece, and I think Justin said you can see that through the camera that's above. And I also have a tracker mounted on my tool. Now, the trackers are available in several different variations. This particular tracker is a rechargeable tracker, so it's portable. It can be removed, charged, another one put in place to keep using the tool. There are trackers that are hardwired, so if it's a cabled tool and we're going to keep it powered up, instead of having a battery to have to charge or whatever, we can have it fully powered all the time with a cord. And then there's a variety of tracker that for some tools, there is a power bus that the tracker can actually be powered off of. In addition, there's trackers that are available. Obviously, this right angle tool could be used with the point of interest, if you will, pointing down, but quite often right angle tools are used at a right angle, either pointing to the left or to the right. So Nexonar makes several different tracker styles to compensate for the orientation of the tool, because the tracker has to be in view of the camera at all times in order to function, which means also that we can have up to 16 cameras tied together in a cluster. So there's also different, the different variations of trackers. There's also different sizes of trackers. It's brand agnostic. So that means if you're an Atlas Copco user and you like this technology and you'd like to use it, but I don't want to have to buy a tool, you don't have to. So it's great. You can use what you already have. The system can be configured as a master or a slave. In my case, it's a slave. If it's a slave, it can be operated by a PLC. It can be monitoring. In this situation, it's monitoring open protocol. Some of the different applications, of course, as I've already mentioned, are tools to monitor the point of use so that the operator is forced to tighten the fasteners in the proper order. They can't skip. They can't get not okays and move on, and I'll show you that. But there's also applications. In fact, we just commissioned this one about 3 months ago, where we're in an engine manufacturing plant, and they have a unique main bearing insert. So we're monitoring the operators cleaning the main bearing saddles and then installing the main bearing inserts. So we're monitoring the bin they're picking from and monitoring that they're putting it in the correct location. If that unique bearing was put in the wrong location, it would cause catastrophic engine damage. So we've got applications where we've put it not only to track hands, track tools for tier 1 suppliers. GM has invested heavily in this technology and some of their applications, and we're just beginning to scratch the surface of what's available. So what I have here in my demo system is I have 4 pieces of technology that I've tied together. I've got a Pro Glove, and Justin's going to show you more about Pro Glove next week, but I've got a Pro Glove to barcode scan my information. My information is being fed into a pivotware station. The pivotware station is controlling the desuder connect that's in the upper left-hand corner. The desuder connect, of course, is communicating wirelessly to this cordless tool. In this installation, Nexonar is the caboose. So it's at the very end, and it's just telling the controller if the tool's in position on the proper fastener. If it's not in position on the proper fastener for that tightening operation, the tool will not run. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to go ahead and select OK. I've got my workspace clean of all debris. I'm going to go ahead and barcode scan. Whoops, got a parrot. It's going to ask me if I have sufficient battery. I'm going to go ahead and select OK. And now, a couple of things that I want to point out on the actual Nexonar screen is we have some indicators that tell us if the trackers are being seen. In my case, neither of the trackers are powered on, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on my reference tracker, and you'll notice, I got to step back over here, I'll block it, that immediately this one turns green to say, hey, I see it. Going to turn the tracker on my tool, and you see the channel turn green. So the value of having a tracker on my workspace is it's dynamic, meaning if you had an application on a moving assembly line, or the part doesn't always get presented exactly the same within reason every time, that I can go ahead and track it. You'll notice also, I think, if you can see it or not, I'm not sure, the tool, of course, is locked. But what you will see right above my index finger is when I'm on the correct fastener location, that will turn green. So now the tool is enabled. I'm going to go ahead and make my fastening, and it moves me to fastener number 2. I can't go to fastener 4. I can't go to fastener 3. I have to go to fastener 2. If I get a not okay result indicated by the red display and also the red display on my pivotware screen, I can't move to the next fastener. I have to come back and fix my problem here. So I'm going to go ahead and move through this. And now the tool is locked. My pivotware screen is asking me, hey, is it free of defects, dents, scratches and otherwise, is it okay to ship? Yes. So I want to acknowledge that, and I want to talk just a little bit about my work piece. Obviously, in this case, it's a laminated sheet of paper, but what you can see is that there's some reference points. So we create a work panel, if you will, and we teach that panel location to the system with an X, Y, and Z, or reference 1, 2, and 3. Then I put my fastener locations within that panel. So what happens in the case of a non-dynamic tracking system, if somebody bumps the camera or something changes, and we had an application where Justin and I had done a proof of concept, they had 33 fasteners around a bell housing, and they had to make 2 rotations. They tightened them half torque the first time, and then they had to come back around and tighten them again. Imagine the daunting task. Somebody moved the camera, and I have to reteach 33 fastener locations. That would really be the pits. So what we can do is just reteach the reference points, X, Y, and Z. And once the system knows that, it knows exactly where all of the fasteners are in relationship. So we covered the inability to move on to not okay fasteners, or not able to move on if we got a not okay fastening. We have to do all of the fasteners. We have to do them in order. Technical coverage, we have 9 other people like me that cover all of the Rhino Toolhouse footprint. And we've got a great support team in Germany at Nexonar. And I'm gonna take you quick to Germany to meet Akeem and Karsten. And they're going to talk a little bit more about calibration and a couple other things. And when we come back, we'll open it up to questions and answers.
Still on mute here.
So
now.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for joining us. I'm Carsten, and this is Achim. We are here in Germany. It's 8 p.m. for us, and yeah, we're gonna show you now some of our calibration tasks, how easy and fast it could be, and Achim will show it now to you.
That's okay. So thanks, Brad. I think I could not even explain it better than you, so I would directly buy a system from your side when I hear all the stuff. And so, since you mentioned a lot of stuff from our system, I think I just want to focus on a slightly different setup we have here in our place. So at your thing or your setup, you have just one camera, but Nexonar is able to attach multiple cameras to the system. So it works with just one camera, but maybe you need some space. Maybe for left-handed, right-handed person, for convenient stuff, we need some more cameras. And though in our setup, we have one camera over there, and we have another camera over there. And so we cover a slightly more range later, like you did in the setup. And also on the tracker, so right now here we have a De Sutter tracker. Wait, please. So here is just one tracker here, like on your tool, but also like you already mentioned, we can extend multiple of these trackers to just one tool. And though here we have a very easy setup where we can connect one of these printed tracker housings just to the battery. And so we have not just one tracker. So right now we have 3 trackers. And maybe Carsten, if you just put it to the camera,
I will just show it to you.
So here, if we put it to the camera, you can easily see we have not just one tracker here on top of the tool, but also on the side. And this gives us a big opportunity that we can, also together with the 2 cameras, so just leave it there. Yeah. So we can rotate the tool in nearly any direction. The only thing is we need one direct line of sight from one of the trackers to one of our cameras. So just to show it here again, I demonstrated a little thing nearly the same what Brad already showed. So we just switch our view right now to our Nexonar. Okay, so just switch it and yes. And wait, so what we do right now, so first of all, what we need to do when we start with a system, we need to calibrate. And he already mentioned our camera sees the trackers here, but finally what we are interested is the tip position here. Or even if you want to use hand application, you want to track your hands and you want to ensure not only that the tool is fastening at the right time, at the right side, you always can say or check that the operator grabs with the right hand at the right box at the right time and brings the right washer or spring at the right piece of right workpiece. And therefore we need to calibrate. And right now what Carsten did, he opened up a calibration menu, and I just have my tracker here. I just put it in any direction to my hands. And the only thing I need to do, I need to go to a calibration box here. So when we bring up the system in the very first installation, we learn the position here. And the only thing I need to do, I will overhand by just clicking here, click, click. I overhand the known position to my fingertips. And now I have a virtual point here. So the hand is tracked by the tracker, but the virtual point is here. And maybe if you open up a little demo recipe, also with this certain screws here on the slide. So Brett, I have the fixed one here, not the loose one. So you see, I have the tracker here, like you already mentioned. So I can dynamically drag my part inside the room. And when I go now with my fingers to any of the positions here, you see, I can detect that I have, for example, fastened on position number 3, or right now I'm on this position, or maybe I'm on this position. Now also I'm free here with my localization. And this gives me the opportunity, like I mentioned, to grab into the right box and bring the part, which I have right here on my fingers, to the right spot here. So this is hand tracking. And also when I use first time touch a tool like this here, it's the same. So just one time before you work with the tool, you go to a calibration, don't do this please, sorry. And you just hit one time the button and say click, click, you calibrate the tool. And for this you have the thing here, there's a nut position here. So we can easily demonstrate this also here on, we have a wrench here. And maybe the first time I just put a short nut to this here. I don't know if you can really good see it here. This is just a short nut. And when I go now here to the system, you see nothing. Oh, I put it wrong. Sorry for this. Carsten, can you help me? I think I put it wrong. Yeah, I mixed it up. Put it in the wrong direction inside. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty bad. So give me just a second. Sorry for this.
That's live.
That's live. Yeah. So did we get it? Oh yes. Okay.
Okay, we will change it.
No, we need to rotate it because the tracker is here.
Yeah.
So very sorry for this. So I just have the wrong side, but I think I can show it just for you, because right now when I go to any direction here, you will see nothing will happen. And now I will learn a position maybe here, just on this spot. And Carsten will go to a calibration menu. And again here, I will just, oops, out of sight. Can you close it? Oh, sorry for this here. The tracker is in the wrong direction here. So I just calibrated the tool by just one click. And when I go now to one of these positions, you see here, I just calibrated the point here, and I can easily rotate my tracker here in this spot. And it will always be at the same position. And when I use a longer nut here, I try to demonstrate it. So very sorry for this, because I will hold it like this here. And now again, let's do a calibration. So I just hold it here in my hand. Sorry for this. I will do a calibration here. And now I have the longer spot here inside. And I can also do all my rotations here at this one. And so calibration is very easy. So you just use one spot here, you hit your calibration button, you put your nut to the tool, and just one click, and that's it. Very easy, very flexible. Yeah, okay, I think that's currently from my side, from a calibration. Maybe one thing to mention is we can have multiple IDs, which means we can have multiple of these trackers inside one camera field of view. So up to 16, which means we have the opportunity to track multiple hands, multiple tools, multiple references of goods in one camera field of view. And for all of them, we have orientation, angles, velocity, and positions, and can go into our assembly scout and can handle independently if something is allowed, if something is not allowed, if we are in order, out of order, whatever is done. Okay, I think so. Something from my side, so I will give back to Steve or to Justin. And
Thank you, Akeem. So at this point, we'd like to open up to questions and answers.
All right, so one of the first questions that we had come through is the service and durability of the system.
Okay, so the question is, how durable is the system and what's the serviceability factor? That's a twofold answer, because of course it is software running on a computer. And if it's a simpler installation, one of the things, if the computer were to have an issue, the software could always be installed on a laptop as long as there is a USB 3.0 port on it. That's not a big deal. When we get into more complicated systems with multiple cameras, then it becomes a little more difficult. Am I off now? Okay, now we're on. I thought I could see the blue light on the top of the camera. Anyway, so I mean, you always have that potential of a computer issue. Some of these systems have been in place now for 4 and 5 years. The trackers, that's probably one of the big questions, is how long do the trackers last? And depending on use or abuse, if it is a rechargeable tracker like I'm using, somewhere between 3.5 and 5 years. Part of that will depend on, is it one shift, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, or are there 3 shifts? How often are we using it? And one of the things that I didn't point out is, because I didn't want to interrupt Akeem, is on his pistol tool that he was showing you, that had the integrated power supply tracker. So that tracker is actually being fed off the battery of the tool. The tracker would be the weak point. Here's an example of a tracker that is a 45-degree angle tracker that was put on a right angle tool at one of our customers, and the tool got dropped on the concrete floor. Well, you can see that the tracker didn't do so well because of the weight of the tool and the weight of the battery. So it's always a great idea to have a spare tracker just in case something like this happens. But the trackers themselves, we don't have to send them to Germany. We have a place in the greater Detroit area that repairs them. And the trackers have been upgraded. They've changed the material that the housings were made of. They've made some additional booting and protection for them. And then the question I always like to ask, of course, with a cordless tool, it's nice because I've got that freedom. I don't have to be tied to something. I can have the tool on a tool holder, pick it up, use it, whatever. But a lot of these applications, we could still suspend the tool with a balancer. I mean, it is a pretty expensive investment. As long as the balancer doesn't interfere with the use of the tool on the application, I think it's a great insurance policy to keep the tool off of the floor, because the tool will get dropped.
Well, it looks like everyone can hear me asking you the question, so I'm just going to ask you the question instead since we're so close. So does Nexonar integrate with light guide systems as well as pivotware?
Yes and yes. The question is, can I integrate Nexonar with light guide and with pivotware? And the answer is yes and yes, because of course, light guide has the ability to communicate via open protocol, but there are some things, you know, we can track tool position not as accurately, and I didn't really mention this in the accuracy point, but we can track that point of interest on that tool down to as little as 1 millimeter. So, I mean, it's very, very accurate and very, very repeatable. We've had some systems running in a tier 1 supplier now, some of them for a year. And other than things like this happening, there's been no issues. It's been rock solid.
You mentioned you already answered the plus or minus location accuracy. Can you dive into, does that increase it with more cameras?
Where the accuracy changes, and think about this for a minute, and I should have grabbed a socket so I could explain this a little further. As we add length to the end of the point of use of the tool, to move that point of use further and further from the parallel line or the location of the tracker, We, of course, as we change that, that movement, you know, maybe with a socket right on here and it's only 1.5 inches long, maybe that 1 millimeter actually translates to plus or minus 1/4 inch. Well, as I add length, it amplifies that skew. Plus, anytime you add an extension or other things onto the end of the tool, you add compliance. So not only does it have the ability to move more, but it immediately sags.
Can multiple operators do simultaneous operations with this?
Can multiple operators do simultaneous operations? I'm going to refer that question to Karsten and Akeem because I've not tried to do that.
Yes, okay, so yes, you can. And since I mentioned a minute before, we have different IDs here on our tool setup, and we can add up to 16 of these trackers in our measurement room, which means we can put maybe 1 or 2 or 3 trackers on tool number 1. We can add 1 to 3 trackers at tool number 2. We have maybe 1 or 2 operators with left hand, right hand gloves here. And all of them can simultaneously work at the same time with the system. And sometimes we share tools that we, maybe one tool gets out, another tool comes in. Sometimes we have 3, 4, 5 tools at the same time at different locations with different operators working at the same time. This is possible. And it will be done.
Thank you.
What protocol do you use for PLC communication?
The question is, what protocol do we use for PLC communication? Well, what we use to go between the Nexonar computer or PC and the PLC is an any bus gateway. So we don't care what, you know, whether it's a Siemens, Allen Bradley, Rockwell, it doesn't matter. We select the appropriate gateway and configure it.
The famous cost question, what's the cost for one tracker on the system?
What's the cost for one tracker on the system? Got to remember, I'm the guy that makes the stuff work. So when it comes to cost, I have no idea, quite honestly. And, you know, is it a single tracker? Is it a tracker like this that was a dual 45-degree tracker? I mean, there's so many variables. It's a loaded question. So there's no easy one answer. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to avoid the question, but it would be something that would be best addressed by understanding your application and the type of tracker that's being used or would be used.
Next question, what is the field of view for each camera?
The field of view for each camera, I can't, there's 2 or 3 different cameras available. The camera is selected based on how close or how far away from the actual fastening operation or the actual hand movement operation we're going to monitor. In the case of my camera, I think it's an 8-meter camera, and I don't remember the field of view. That's one of those things that I've got wrote down, but I've got it wrote down so I don't have to remember it. But we can get you that answer. That's not a problem.
Okay. Is there options for free order latched with multiple operators, excuse me? Is there options for free order latched with multiple operators?
Is there options? The question is, are there options for free order latched with multiple operators? Once again, that's not something I've done, but I believe that one of our application engineers, Mike, has done something very similar to that, where it's been free order and latched.
So maybe if you can hear me, I can give you a little information on this. So yes, all of this is possible. So we call it tasks, and every operator gets his own task with his own flexible or in order recipe he needs to execute. So one operator maybe have tool number 1 fastening screw number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another operator has to fasten 10 screws, but they can be out of order. He can do it like ever he wants to do it, or in which order. Finally, we just check that he has finally fastened 10. So this is possible, and also will be done in the out of the field.
Thank you, Akeem.
Next question, does this work in X, Y, and Z? You show an example on flat plane.
Does this work in X, Y, and Z? Of course it does. Unlike most smart arms that are XY only, this does also incorporate Z axis.
Yes, maybe also one word from my side here. Yes, so we have this 6 degrees of freedom. So our camera detects the LEDs, and out of this we can create a X, Y, Z position in the room, 6 degrees of freedom. The only requirement we have, one of our cameras need to have direct line of sight to one of our trackers. And then we see where one of the trackers is oriented, and we get a position of our tooltip. And you can easily rotate everything in all directions you want to have. The only thing is, like I mentioned, one camera needs to see at least one tracker of the tool, and then everything is working.
Thank you, Akeem.
Next question goes back to price. What is the range of max min per the tracker cost? Do have a reply back on the range of $500 to $1,000 is a typical tracker cost per one of our application engineers that commented. The next question, does Nexonar run off of its own PC, or can it be run in parallel with a process control system such as Pivotware, Light Guide on the same PC?
It would be recommended. The question is, can Nexonar be piggybacked onto an existing PC such as Pivotware or Light Guide? It would be recommended that the Nexonar system is run on its own PC because of the data requirements via USB for the cameras to operate properly. And it goes up drastically as we continue to add cameras, as far as how much data and bandwidth it takes on a PC.
Yeah, so maybe also one word from my side, exactly like you mentioned. So we are able to install our software on nearly any Windows-based Windows 7 or Windows 10 PC, but we have some kind of requirements depending on the hardware. So it's not only that we use the USB 3.0 cameras, we also require some kind of motherboard configuration that we get our camera data as fast as possible inside our PC. But when let's say it depends on how many cameras you want to operate. If you have a camera system, maybe one, maybe two, I think it's possible by just adding our software and connecting the cameras to the USB 3 port of your PC, of the customer's defined PC. If you have multiple cameras, maybe more than 3 or 4, so the load for the PC will be maybe too high, especially if there is a peak from another software. And so I would recommend if you have more than 1 or 2 cameras, don't do it and have a single or a separated PC for the Nexonar system, that it runs smoothly and properly.
Thank you.
Next question, do you have to clean the camera on a regular basis?
The question is, do you have to clean the camera on a regular basis? The systems that we've had running that I've been involved with that have been going for a year, the cameras haven't been touched.
So also here, so we never clean our lenses. So even if there is some dust or even if there is some oil on the lens, then the focus is not directly at the objective, but more outside. And the second thing is that our LEDs are the most brightest thing in our picture. So we use a daylight filter, we have a black image with white spots. And so even if there is some dust on the lens or even on the tracker and you have some oil on the tracker or whatever is covered, we will always see these bright spots and can get a position. And we never clean, or we have no maintenance to clean our lenses. And we want to avoid it for sure, that nobody touches the camera and can, let's say, change the orientation of the cameras.
Thank you. Next question, can I track a moving line, and will it track position, and how far can the camera see the tracker?
Can I track a moving line, and how far can the camera see the tracker? Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you can track a moving line. That can be done, as mentioned, as Akeem showed you, and I showed you with a reference tracker like I have on the top of my 2D assembly process, but it can also be done via laser. And really how far away depends on which particular camera is selected for the application. Just keep in mind that we have to, as Akeem has mentioned, keep the tracker in the field of view of the camera at all times. That's why we have multiple camera systems, so that it can pass that from camera to camera.
Thank you. Next question. What is the normal PM interval for a camera and a tracker?
What is the normal PM interval for a camera and a tracker? Well, this is really easy because there isn't one. It would be suggested that, once again, if you've got multiple systems installed, number one, you would always have a backup tracker in case this were to happen, in case the tool was dropped and the tracker was damaged. But also, if you have a spare camera, we can always implement that and get it licensed and up and going. Those are the trackers really the most potential weak point. Maybe a spare cable or two just in case somebody hits it or cuts it, because on the longer runs for the cameras, it's a fiber optic cable.
Thank you. Next question. Is there tool covers that integrate the tracker to keep them from getting damaged when dropped?
Are there tool covers available that can be used to be integrated with the trackers in case for protection in case they're dropped? Absolutely. We have a company right out of Charleston, South Carolina that does some really cool stuff. And actually for this customer that has I don't need to keep picking up the broken tracker. I just like to have something in my hands. For that customer, they actually made some additional protection to put on the tool because we know the operator is going to drop it.
Maybe also here, Carsten will just hold one of the trackers inside the camera that you can maybe better see it.
Yeah.
And Nico, just go please to here. So maybe you know from your remote control at home, you know there is a cover on the LED. So even if you look into your remote control, you won't see something. And we use nearly the same material to cover the trackers. So which means from an infrared point of view, maybe we can just.
Yeah, but before I can do something which is broken before.
Okay.
Or just one.
So if you see, we have the cover, and maybe if you I think you saw before, you see here which the LEDs looks through this materials,
yeah.
And so even if it is covered, we can see our position. The only thing I need to mention is it is no IP86 or whatever protection. It's a kind of waterproofing, but it is not really sealed. So if you would put it underwater, it would get broken anywhere, anytime.
Don't take it swimming.
Don't take it swimming for sure. Yeah. So don't shower it and don't take it swimming.
So Akeem, you went right into the next question. That was the IP rating for the camera and tracker. So it wasn't 86. Is it 54 or?
So right now, I don't really know the specific configuration. We are working on this to get this better, but right now, for the, let's say, current situation, we don't have this waterproof IP configuration.
So from the sales side, we can say our normal tracker are IP protected to 45, and there's optional available soon 68K.
Yeah. So from an electronics point of view, we have something that we can live with shortening the USB ports, which sometimes are used to, let's say, charge the system if we have no direct connection by the tool. But so far, yes, no IP configuration on it for IP68.
All right, I guess that kind of wraps up the questions and answers. Thank you again, everybody, for your time and your attention and the great questions, and just wish everybody a safe and happy holiday weekend. And we'll resume again Monday at 2 p.m. And I think we're going to be doing wearables next week for the most part. So you'll see some exciting new stuff that we have there. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. Everybody's seen the Pro Glove a little bit today, but Justin will cover it in much greater detail next week. Thank you again, and have a great remainder of your day, and be safe.